But welcome everyone to our third webinar. Before Raphael comes back, I would like to quickly introduce myself. I will be your moderator today. My name is Apiwat Ratanawaraha from Chulalongkorn University, and I've been working with the UN ESCAP for this South-South collaboration program for a couple of years now, and this is actually our third webinar. And the reason why we're organizing this webinar, in addition to as part of the collaboration program, we're actually developing a workbook on how the private sector can engage in STI in this region. So this webinar is part of the process to develop the workbook. All right, Raphael, you're back, so please.
Sorry, I think I got disconnected here. So Apiwat already introduced the webinar. In case I missed, apologize. So now I think we're ready to send for the opening remarks. So to deliver the opening remarks, we have Dr. Rupa Chanda, Director of the Trade, Investment, and Innovation Division, United Nations ESCAP. So Rupa, over to you.
Thank you very much, Raphael, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, esteemed panelists, and distinguished participants. I extend my heartfelt welcome to each one of you as we embark on this enriching webinar titled Leveraging Networks for Science, Technology and Innovation Policies in Cambodia, Lao People's Democratic Republic, Thailand and Vietnam. It's really a privilege to set the stage for today's discussions. These discussions are critical to advancing our shared objectives in science, technology and innovation within this region. Our focus today aligns with the essence of collaboration and synergy, which reflects the core of Sustainable Development Goal 17, Partnerships for the Goals. In this spirit, we delve into the transformative potential of networks that interface the expertise and resources of the private sector, academia, and government. In the CLTV countries, the intricate tapestry of local and regional networks presents both a remarkable opportunity and a complex challenge. These networks are not just platforms for dialogue, but catalysts for action and innovation. And their integration is pivotal for a cohesive policy landscape that accelerates the development of national and regional STI capabilities. However, while the South-South and Triangular Collaboration Program has laid a solid foundation for emerging partnerships in the region, the development of such platforms has also brought to light challenges regarding integrating diverse networks, overcoming barriers to effective collaboration at the regional level, and ensuring that these networks lead to tangible outcomes in STI policy implementation. Mindful of these shortcomings, today's webinar seeks to unravel some of the strategies that have successfully harnessed the power of networks for policy implementation, spotlighting the interplay between various stakeholders, the hurdles that need to be navigated, and best practices to do so. Moreover, the role of intermediaries within these networks is of paramount importance. These entities serve as the connective tissue between policy design and its tangible outcomes, particularly in nurturing startup ecosystems and bolstering STI human capital. Therefore, our dialogue today will also explore how governments can further empower these intermediaries to bridge gaps and drive forward the STI agenda. The insights and experiences shared today will not only enrich our understanding, but also guide us in crafting more integrated and effective STI ecosystems across the CLTV region. Through this collaborative endeavor, we aspire to lead down the pathways for innovation, sustainability, and inclusive growth. I'm grateful to you all for your presence as well as eager participation. Together, let us harness the collective wisdom and innovative spirit of this forum to forge a future where networks become key drivers for STI advancement in the CLTV region. Thank you once again for your commitment to this strategic cause. I look forward to stimulating discussions and groundbreaking ideas that will emerge from our collective engagement today. Thank you and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Rupa, for your kind words and great opening remarks. So now I would like to introduce our moderator, who already introduced himself, but Apiwat, if you could, over to you, and also to give a little more overview of our webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. So welcome, everybody. As I introduced myself earlier, I'm Apiwat from Chulalongkorn University here in Bangkok, Thailand. And I've been part of this team for almost 2 years now, figuring out, the South-South collaboration program, and part of the team that's developing a workbook on policies that would promote the private sector engagement in STI in CLTV region, as well as other developing countries. As part of the process to develop the workbook, we actually organized a couple of webinars last year, and we organized a workshop in Bangkok in December last year. And throughout this process, one of the keywords that came up all the time was networks. And we discussed, how important networks are for STI policy, design and implementation. But as I moderated a few sessions with the participants, we realized that we tend to use the word network almost sort of casually, even though we kind of know what networks are, but we haven't really thought much about it in terms of the conceptual foundation of the term network and how we actually use the concept of network to implement our policies and agenda. So it became an interesting topic for us for this webinar today. So that's why we decided to organize this webinar, or webinar 3, on networks. So let me first introduce our esteemed panelists today. We have 5 wonderful participants and panelists today. Firstly, we have Dr. Sieng Heng Hull, the Undersecretary of State at the Ministry of Industry, Science, Technology, and Innovation in Cambodia. With his experience as a former professor and a current policymaker in STI in Cambodia, Dr. Hull brings a comprehensive perspective on harnessing STI networks and its pain point from a policy making standpoint. Joining us next is Ms. Christina Schoenleber, Chief Strategy Officer at the Association of Pacific Rim Universities. Her background in an international university network, APRU, equips her with a unique viewpoint on how to manage small networks with larger networks to address societal challenges. We are also delighted to have Mr. Saibandit Raspon, the Vice President of the Laos National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. His experience working as part of the intermediary, the Chamber of Commerce for trade, and will enable us to learn about the challenges and the needs of intermediaries like the Lao Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We are honored to have Ms. Roisin Green, Head of Strategy, Growth and Partnerships, Global Plastic Action Partnership of the World Economic Forum. She brings a novel perspective from a global network focusing on building a multi-stakeholder platform and offer a larger field of views in network building strategies. Last but not least, Ms. Nirada Wirasopon, Assistant to the President of the Office of National Higher Education, Science, Research, and Innovation Policy Council of Thailand, who joins us today with her experience as a government agency, from a government agency here in Thailand that is part of an Innovation Club Thailand, and she will help us shed light on how government agency position itself in a network among the private sector. So we have 5 panelists today. So let me start right away to our first round of discussion. So basically, the first round, we are going to be talking a little bit about strategies for a network utilization in policy implementation. Today, we are diving into the complex world where policy needs practice guided by the principle that that networks, whether it's digital intrapersonal or institutional, hold the key to transformative policy outcomes. So our focus at the beginning in this session will be on exploring the ways in which these networks can be harnessed to facilitate, streamline, or enhance the implementation of policies across various sectors, particularly in STI. So our aim here is not just to discuss, but perhaps we can equip you, the participants, with some practical tools and insights that can be applied in your respective sectors and domain. So let's start with Dr. Hao. So Dr. Hao, because you are a high-level policymaker in Cambodia, and you've done a lot of work with the private sector, with policymakers and academia. In the context of Cambodia, what specific strategies, especially from your experience, what strategies have proven effective in leveraging networks for the implementation of STI policies? Dr. Hao.
Yep. Thank you very much, Dr. Ampivat. So far, thank you very much again to the foundation of what we have done in Cambodia, particularly the support from UN ESCAP to have Cambodia STI roadmap, science technology roadmap 2030. So from that roadmap, the kind of policy that endorsed by the government, we have a clear indicators from now until 2030 to ensure that STI is a backbone to support Cambodia vision to be an upper middle income country by 2030. So our roadmap sets until 2030 also focusing on 5 pillars. We say pillar, wise pillar. Without that vision 2030 from STI dimension would be difficult for the country to achieve this endeavor. So one is governance. Of course, I think here and there is not just in Cambodia, but elsewhere also. STI is a cross-cutting nature of sector that, every sector in other sector linked with STI also. So when you do things immediately, they will say, oh, you jump on my feet. So quickly coordinating agency or coordinating body is very important to ensure that STI is smoothly integrated into various sectors in the country. Second is human capital, or specifically, we are focusing mainly on how we ensure that STEM graduates by 2030 are there, because we aim to have Dr. Ampivat, interrupt me at any time if I'm talking too long. On ensuring that STEM 50% by 2030. So now STEM is around maybe less than 20%. So in order to increase the GDP to upper middle income by 2030, we have to have enough human resource, particularly labor force in STEM sector, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And number 3 is research. Without creating knowledge locally, I think we will be hard. We just busy adopting. Sometimes it's not contextual based technology. You just bring in and take time also to materialize, to fit into your context. So R&D is there, must be important. We aim to have 1% of R&D by 2030 also from our GDP. We are working on this also. I'm ready to elaborate more. Number 4 is collaboration. It's bottlenecks of everything. Without collaboration, we cannot ensure, the SME growth. We cannot ensure the educational sector produce the right human resource. We cannot ensure that government are producing the right policy. So collaboration are essential. And number 5, building ecosystem, focusing mainly on this short and medium term until 2030. How can we ensure that we attract the right investment from foreign direct investment, particularly ensure that we have STI-based enterprise in Cambodia, and tech transfer ecosystem are there. So the tech transfer law are there, enforcement of intellectual property right are there. So all of these are the policy that we are building locally, the network. We have National Council of Science, Technology and Innovation also, and this under Ministry of Industry, Science, Technology and Innovation, who work with other ministry to ensure that STI are smoothly integrated in their respective TOR or mandate. So these are locally that we are building the network locally, but we are ready to expedite these indicators, sharing common goal with other nations also, particularly Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, which is what we are doing right now. I hope it's short enough to share space for others. Dr. Ampiwat, if you need more, I can talk more.
Yeah, I have a quick question though, Dr. Hal. So the networks that you try to build in Cambodia, when you build networks, what are sort of the key strategies you use when you build the networks? Any particular approach you use?
Oh yeah, very touchy question and a very tough question also. We, like what I said, I did not elaborate more. We have a National Council of Science and Technology. These are legal framework that we build. Of course, other activity based to show our mandate is from time to time workshop here and there, conference here and there. That's what we do. But we have one is a legal tool, which is the National Council, honorable chair by Prime Minister, and our minister is a chair. And then we have other servant minister inside the council. Those are the most relevant institution in this. We have twice meeting per year and raising all of the issue from legal wise. And
so do you feel that the legal framework helps in building the networks?
In our context, we are, influenced by Confucius principle somehow. We respect authority to some extent. Of course, practically many challenges there. I can talk days on that, but of course, when we come to talk, we said, okay, let's work together. You are also member of National Council of Science and Innovation. Let's do this together. Of course, before you say no, you may see the degree signed by the king also.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, because I feel like you're bringing up some interesting point about networks, though, because a lot of time when you read the literature on networks, we tend to assume that it's a horizontal sense, right? I mean, everybody is equal, and but I feel from your answer there's some hierarchical sense of the networks that are sort of useful, I guess, with a sort of with some legal framework, but at the same time, there's some hierarchical sense to the network that's part of the STI policymaking there. It's not, networks as everybody is equal, everybody is horizontal. So I feel that. I don't know if that's the case, but we can come back later. But I got some sort of interesting thought about what you mentioned. Now, let me ask Dr. Saibandit. You are, from the private sector, and you're the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce in Laos. And so I'm just wondering, from your perspective, Dr. Saibandit, so could you provide some examples of how the Chamber of Commerce in Laos or in other countries that you are familiar with, and other private sector networks work with the academia and with the government, and what challenges you encounter during this process of working with other sectoral partners, please.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this very interesting topics this afternoon. And thanks, Dr. Piwat, for this for the question. I think for the case of Laos, mainly from the business part, the Chamber of Commerce industry is the representative from the private sector. So in this chamber, we had many business associations, so including the ICT, agriculture, logistics, hotel, hospitality, so you name it. So aviation, transport, and so on. So of course, these associations are quite strong, and also not so strong as well, depending on the groups of people that getting there. However, in regards to the networking, so the chamber is trying to do a cross-sectoral one. So any issues regarding to something, so we had assembly or general meetings to discuss the matters on this part. However, of course, each of the sectors, as well as the innovation, technology, and so on coming in, is a new for Lao. In doing so, some of the company that had how can I say exist, so they try to group by themselves together. However, the group is not sometimes not well set, because the leadership of the groups is the challenging part as well. Because to be leader of a company is one thing, but leader of a group of people, a group of business is other thing. So you need more authority, more networks, especially with the government, also with international network as well, because you're connecting with many other international networks as well as the academia, of course. At this moment, for Laos, I think is a bit special. The connection between the business and the academia is not yet well established. I think this is one of the challenge that we have to make it more clearer. For example, Laos actually had Lao China Railway fast train. So this is one, the business is very well ongoing. However, the challenge is to build capacity between these business, especially for booking. Let's say for booking the ticket. At the moment, you can only book for yourself and only 3 days ahead, and you cannot buy your return ticket. So that's something challenging. Why is that so? That's we need to work. I mean, between the business and also the research people, which we really I think it allows almost non-existent. The exists between the ministries. They call it the Economic Research Institute. They call it the Trade Research Institute. But everything is under a ministry, not really under the university, the academia themselves. So we need to bring this link together. But how we do to link each other? The government has to be the main linker. So doing, of course, we have to collaborate, private sector and the government, to establish how can I say a strategy, so that everybody be involved in this kind of networking.
So may I interrupt on that point? So it feels like you're saying that in the case of Laos, the government, you think the government should play an active role in fostering networks or collaboration. Or could it be the other way around, that the private sector, like the Chamber of Commerce, would lead instead of the government?
Very good question, Dr. Apivat. Of course, the private sector is the driving force, is the demanding part. However, in order to be officialized, in order to be accepted and endorsed, we need a government kind of endorsement for our work. The private sector cannot do without is it the cultural and the way of how our is managed. So we need the government to be part. However, the government is so slow. Sorry to say that. Sometimes they don't understand the business mind. The business is quick. The business is fast. So they want to do it and so on. However, the response from the government must be quicker. And to do so, they need to appoint the right person, the right people, which have the power as well. But because sometimes the one that has power doesn't have the knowledge of the topic.
Right. Well, I guess that's why I guess that's why you have to work together. But I really got this idea from you. It feels like networks do need legitimacy, endorsed by the government. because networks cannot operate by themselves, thinking that, you know, by having workshops and events and stuff like that, they will gain legitimacy automatically. From what I hear from you, it seems like the government can do a lot in terms of providing that sort of legitimacy to networks. That to me is something that really interesting, because based on Dr. Howe's answer earlier, the legal framework is also important, and you're saying also the legitimacy. So which basically, you know, you both are saying the role of the government is key in building networks. All right, so let me ask Roisin, who's operating sort of, you know, at the really global level. So my question to you, Roisin, your work is really on building multi-stakeholders platform at the global level, and the aim is to foster collaboration. So what specific strategies have proven effective from your experience in leveraging networks to scale and accelerate, you know, specifically inclusive circular solutions that your you know, group, the Global Plastic Action Partnership, is working on?
Great, yes, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for inviting me to this conversation today. I think it's so important to think about South-South collaboration, but also the role of networks in collaboration. Within the World Economic Forum, our mission is to improve the state of the world through public-private cooperation. So really, networks and public-private cooperation is the core of what we do. And within the Global Plastic Action Partnership, our core strength lies in convening a neutral platform for collaboration. And I'll share a little bit on GPAP and the work that we do, just to give context before jumping into the networks. So GPAP was created in 2018 when a diverse coalition of governments and businesses and international organizations turned to the World Economic Forum with an idea that a multi-stakeholder platform and network could translate plastic pollution commitments into action. And therefore, the Global Plastic Action Partnership, or GPAP, our aim is to shape a more sustainable and inclusive world through the eradication of plastic pollution. And we do this actually at two levels, so both globally through our global platforms, but we also have a network of 15 national plastic action partnerships in Southeast Asia, in Africa and Latin America, also committed to this goal. So I think it's really important and nice to have a global network that can bring together best practice and thought leadership, but also have a national arm of that really focuses on implementation and driving action on the ground and having a global and local connection point. So there's a network there within itself. And we also have a goal to support 25 countries by 2025. And maybe diving into our role at a national level, within the partnerships that we have currently, they're focused on kind of 5 key objectives. So one is informing effective policy decisions when it comes to plastic pollution, demonstrating the power of cross-sectoral collaboration, driving greater inclusion, involving marginalized groups into the transition. So how can we think of networks as a means and a way to bring more people into the conversation, providing guidance to policymakers, and also, of course, making progress towards the UN SDGs. And thinking about the network itself, and this is, again, both at a global and a national level, in each partner country that we work with and globally, we support local champions to build networks that are led by a steering board. So I think governance is something that you've touched upon already, and it's come up with different speakers. And for us at GPAP and at a national level, it's important that these steering boards are led by the most influential leaders and change makers. And that has to come from both government, private sector, academia, and civil society. So bringing all of those leaders together. And then the NPAP Secretariat, we always have a team on the ground in every single country, can ensure that there's a more inclusive engagement then with other organizations that maybe sit outside of the steering board. So how can you make it inclusive while also having that very clear governance structure? So I think in identifying those key leaders, it's also something that's really important when you design a network, because networks do need to be designed and they need to be planned. So all of these pieces are a kind of part of that puzzle. And then, for example, in the ASEAN region, we're working currently with 4 countries. So in Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and the Philippines. And in Indonesia and Vietnam, we're among the first countries to join the GPAP network almost 5 years ago now. So with them, For example, in Vietnam, we have mapped and we've engaged with 138 different initiatives in the country that are all tackling plastic waste. And then under the leadership of the ministry, again, a point that you've already touched upon, we're able to engage with different organizations through governance, through task force meetings, and through the different knowledge products and reports that we develop. So trying to think about all of those different structures. I think another element that's really important, we think in the GPAP network, is being able to have a neutral and a trusted platform. World Economic Forum, that is part of our goal, is to always be impartial and to always be bringing neutrality. And I think that helps to bring different stakeholders to the table. So can you create spaces where government and business and academia can feel that they have a safe space to come together without kind of it being fully owned by one or the other? So I think neutrality for us is key. And the other part of that is also having a very evidence-based and data-driven approach. So we use a methodology based on a global report called the Breaking the Plastic Wave, which then enables us to develop national baselines, which look to track plastic waste flows through a country. And then we bring in academia to help us kind of validate the different data points. So all of the decisions that are made or options that are presented to our different groups have a strong evidence base to them. And I think that helps to sometimes break down the barriers between kind of different positions and different strategies. If we can come back to what the evidence is saying, that really helps to move forward and focus on the solutions and the action that's needed. And then finally, I think...
Yep, please. Sorry? Please, no, go ahead. Yeah, please, your last point.
Is the most important piece of networks is the people. And I think about having groups of people come together. And for us at the annual meeting in Davos this year, the focus was on building trust. And I think building trust is something that we need to build into all of our different work, because collaboration cannot work without people and it can't work without trust.
Right. So I thank you so much. I mean, you basically lay out the key principles of how we can use networks to implement some core ideas of the organization and beyond. My question is about that part about trust, really. I mean, how do you actually build it? I mean, in practice, do you actually meet with people, or how does it work as in terms of process or in terms of activities? What kind of activities you do so that you can build the trust?
It's easier said than done. So that's the kind of the first part about it. I think in terms of trust for us, a couple of things that we've learned is at GPAP, we've got global level networks and national level. At the national level, it's important that they're locally owned and locally driven, and that means having teams on the ground, and then really selecting the kind of importance of the team. So I think having people in place at the initial instance is very important. I think having helpful governance structures helps to build an environment for trust. And then it's about not just kind of one-on-one conversations. How do you bring people together? All of these pieces. It's worth putting intention and design into every single aspect of your network. How you communicate, how you help to connect the dots. All of these things are worth having a strategy that puts together. But I think having people on the ground and having those core champions to really take a leadership position helps to drive things along.
Okay, great. Because when we had our workshop in December here, that term, that word trust came up all the time. Trust networks. So thank you for stressing that point again. All right, so let's move to Christina, who's really working with academics and researchers and scientists. And I'm a professor and researcher myself, so we're not the easiest people to work with. So Christina, from your experience, what challenges have you encountered, as you try to build networks specifically with leading academics and researchers in this region? And I know you have to work with, like university presidents and leading policymakers. We all have egos, I guess. So how do you tackle, these sort of like personal challenges in trying to build networks with academics?
Thank you, Apurot. And yes, good morning, and wherever you are, hello. and thank you very much for having me. It's really nice and very exciting to be in this group here talking about the challenges, but also the opportunities and that networks provide for actually having impact. And that's what it's all about, what we are trying to achieve. So I work for the Association of Pacific Rim Universities, as was mentioned before. And we are a network of 60 universities that are based around the Pacific Ocean. So the ocean connects us basically and provides also a lot of the impetus that for us to work together. APU is not a new network. We were set up in the late 90s and by some university presidents that realized that they wanted that academics are not just there to research for their own interest, but really that the outputs and the knowledge of research should be applied and should help address and solve issues that we are all facing. And at that point, it was also recognized that the Asia-Pacific region was really economically in a very big growth trajectory, and there was really a drive to help work with stakeholders externally to apply some of the knowledge that sits within the universities around this region, basically. And that's why this network was set up. And while I was then not working for APU, but I'd argue that at that point, the focus was on economic development, really supporting the economic development of the region. And our focus has changed somewhat now, and we really are looking to address many challenges that are global challenges, but on a regional focus. So economic is still important, but more now driven by bigger problems that we're all facing, which are driven by climate change, by the rising temperatures, by biodiversity loss, by aging populations, and everything that this will then has sort of a knock-on effect, a domino effect on many other things around. So that is what we see as the what we can bring to the region through our network of academics. And we see, I'm going to repeat some of the words that have been repeated by our colleagues, by Rasheen beforehand, as by other speakers already. So important we see ourselves as a neutral platform. So we can work with multi-stakeholders, and all of these challenges that I just said we are aiming to support in providing solutions and knowledge to address these on a policy level. I have to say we are not looking at technology implementation, but really on policy level. Those cannot be addressed by just an academic or even academic network. It's a multi-stakeholder challenge, all of this. Everybody needs to be engaged, and we see ourselves as sort of a trusted, neutral convener of these networks or some of these collaborations, but only actually one part of the puzzle. But then collaboration, working together, it's not about telling anybody what to do. And that is the same for the internal network that I'm building in terms of our academic colleagues. As you said yourself, academics are a special species, and you have to collaborate with them. You can't tell them what to do. And then the other, I think the other two things I wanted to raise, and they have been implicit, so it's already mentioned, maybe not very specifically, but implied. One is time, that there's some time differences within those networks, but also the understanding of needs and understanding of how networks work, maybe on a national level, but also regional level. So you ask about some of the challenges in building some of these networks. So for academic, what I am trying to do and what we are aiming to do is really to showcase, first of all, the opportunities to academics. What is possible? Academics understand, and I think, let's say experts in certain topics, areas, they will understand their own area very well. And they also will have already ways of showing what is possible for academics. It's research, they research and then they write papers and then they publish them. And but the impact, showing impact is also a key consideration now. And there we aim to show how collaboration with external stakeholders through the network that we provide, which provides a bigger platform that goes beyond possibly the local and the national level for the academics, how they can engage and how we build projects to have impact through the knowledge that academics bring. So that is one about working with the external stakeholders, showing what stakeholders we bring, and we work with multilateral organizations such as UN ESCAP is one of our very valued partners, UN Habitat, the ADB, World Economic Forum, once in a while we engage with. We also have other trusted partnerships on a local level within through our own networks of academics. And it's really bringing those groupings together with academics to show this is how you can work and showcase some of the works that we're doing, basically, already what has happened. But then it's also, we have to bring academics together and for them to work together, actually. Academics that are interested on a topic. So we have to identify, let's say, for example, sustainable cities is a topic that we focus on, or through that program that we have developed, we can work with UN ESCAP and UN Habitat on the Asia Pacific Mayors Academy, for example. So that will allow us to go out to academics from our network across the region, academics from Bangkok, from Thailand, from the US, from the Philippines, from Singapore, to talk to these colleagues and say, you work within sustainable city, the realm, come and join the network, meet other academics to start with who have similar interest areas, and then it takes time. It takes more than one meeting. It takes, I would say, a couple of years to really build something, so the academics actually have trusting each other to work together, and they understand that they are really because they also have very specific narrow interest areas, and it's about trying to widen these and to open them up. So that's
please go ahead. No,
and then yes,
I was just really intrigued and really wonderful to hear that you're basically telling us to be a little bit patient. You know, it's almost like you're saying it does take time. You know, it's not like, you know, in order to build trust, in order to build legitimacy, in order to build the real effective networks, it does take effort and time. So are you saying almost like, please do not rush into trying to build networks?
Yes and no, because as a network, each network operates at a different time scale. So
okay.
Well, so business networks move much faster. So we collaborate with academia, with multilateral organizations, UN ESCAP maybe. Let's stick, you know, we all know each other here. Governments. So and I'd say, and businesses. So government and business, I would say, probably move faster, possibly than academia sometimes. Yes. So
most of the time, I would say.
Yes. So you have to be aware of this, but some academics and some
could be fast.
Groupings can be fast. So it's about identifying where we can have those where these meet, basically, where the meeting points, and where we can maybe facilitate to speed some of these things up, and maybe speed some up and slow some down a little bit. And that's what we have been doing with some of the projects where we bring business together, UN ESCAP and national governments and academia. And that's how we see ourselves, as we can maybe facilitate this faster and slower pace. So we have an equilibrium somewhere.
Yeah, I think you just give us another principle there, you know, adjusting the speed of each network together, so that, you know, we can sort of work together with different sort of, you know, existing a perception of time and space there. Thank you. I would like to go to our fifth panelist, Kun Nirada, who actually is representing a government agency, you know, STI agency NXPO is a higher education and STI agency, government agency in Thailand. And you yourself, Kunirada, you've been involved with the Thai Innovation Club, which is in itself a private sector, domestic private sector innovation networks. So how do you or the organization NXPO itself position the organization in fostering the domestic innovation networks? Perhaps I don't know if you will be able to answer this, but Christina's point earlier, the private sector, especially startups, they tend to move really fast. They want to go fast, grow fast, scale up quickly. On the other hand, you are from the government sector. You have to be, careful, caution, building the ecosystem. How do you actually balance that as you deal with the the domestic innovation networks in Thailand? Kunirada, please.
Yes, thank you for having me today, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Let me start with the goal of the Thailand innovation ecosystem or economy. The goal of the innovation economy of the Thailand consists of three main goals. The first one is to increase the Thailand gross expenditure on R&D to 2% of GDP. From now is about 1% of GDP. We have three goals. The second is to grow the number of the innovation-driven enterprise, or we call IDEs, the company that are engaged in R&D and innovation activities. The goal is to grow the number of IDE to 1,000 companies, with each company having an average revenue of 1,000 million baht. And the last one, the goal is to create 5 Thai unicorn startups. This is the goal of the nation, of the country. And it's aligned with the goal of the Innovation Club as well. The goal of the Thai Innovation Club is to establish a framework for the innovation ecosystem to support the Thai startup in scaling up the business and to achieve the success on the global stage, particularly for the startup. So the goal of the nation and the goal of the Innovation Club is consistent, which is to foster the innovation-driven economy and to support the Thai startup onto the global stage. So therefore, it is like a imperative that the supporting of the government agency when it aligns with the club vision. So the law of the government policy body like NEXPO, we try to establish the well-defined scope and facilitate the seamless collaboration to the private sector. This will be foster the mutual understanding and efficient interaction, enabling the exchange of valuable insight across the societal and technological issue. So this streamlined communication leads to innovation problem solution mechanism. I will give you the example. The NEXPO will provide the comprehensive information across the various aspects relevant to the business operation. We do the policy research together with Chulalongkorn University. We have conducted research on relevant topics such as the state of the Thai startup ecosystem and best practice for support Thai startup. For example, the book called IDE's Investment Ecosystem, Scale Up Nation 2030, and the Accelerating Scale Up Nation. All these policy research found that the lack of early stage investment is the barriers to scale up of for the startup. Then we provide the regulatory updates and like a compliant guidelines for new mechanism. We call it university holding company that allow the universities to put the money as an investor into the spin-off company to help them grow, and they can raise fund in the next stage. So this kind of funding opportunities and financial instrument that from the government policy like Nexpo. So this is Nexpo involved in the CAP and make the problem solving for them. Furthermore, Nexpo and Jula also provide the training program for running the holding company, university holding company as well. So to answer your question, Nexpo has involved in the role of facilitator to the private sector in the aspect of the policymaker. We share the understanding of the public policy. We advocate for the specific policy direction to solve the problem with the new mechanism, and we also do the monitoring and evaluation to track the impact of the policy and identify the area for improvement. Also, we are positioned ourselves as the impactful supporter, like a facilitate, inform decision making, provide new funding mechanism, and disseminating like information to the many channels like training programs.
It seems to me that the organization in Nexpo is positioning itself not just a policymaking agency anymore, right? Because we used to think of a government agency as policymaking, advocating the policy, get funding and things like that. Now it seems like you are acting, as you said, as a facilitator, and for us, it's almost like an intermediary of STI policy, not just policy making. I have to apologize that I need to interrupt you briefly because Dr. Hal needs to go to see the minister. I have one quick question to Dr. Hal, and then we'll come back to our discussion. Dr. Hal, so Kunirada mentioned NXPO as the role of intermediary. So my question to you before you have to go to see the minister, what actions do you think governments should take to support intermediaries in general? If you could give us some quick ideas, it could be in the context of Cambodia. How can the government support intermediaries? Please, Dr. Hall.
Thank Dr. Pivat, and apology. Quick, I think Thailand, you are doing is right thing also, government just making policy in principle. Government will not intervene or do things, if government do things, it will start there, definitely government just facilitator or build ecosystem only. The rest, let private sector do it. You have agency, we have public. We call ourselves public enterprise, a kind of like that. So now we are moving in that direction also. So we will not do things. We let the private sector doing. You have agency do things more or less similar like what the private sector is doing also. So again, government, if government do it, hardly to assess and hardly to give a result. For that reason, for long term. That's why most of nation, even Max in Japan, even now you have Nexpo in Thailand, even agency A-Star in Singapore. So all of these are way that we are to do this also. Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. So basically the idea is that the government has to support the private sector and to support the networks that the private sectors are engaged in. Thank you so much, Dr. Hal. Hopefully we'll see you next month in Bangkok. Good luck with the minister.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. So we'll go to our second question, basically. And our second question is actually about what Roisin and Christina have been mentioning earlier. It's about integrating local and regional or international networks for policy synergy. The focus here is on the critical role of collaboration or cohesion, I guess, mostly collaboration across different levels of governance. The global governance, the regional governance like ASEAN, for example, and the domestic levels of governance, as well as engagement. How we engage different actors at different levels. So I would like to ask Christina to give us a little bit some ideas of how do you think we can effectively integrate local and regional networks to enhance collaboration, particularly in the case of APRU, universities, the private sector, and academia. And if you could give us some specific examples of how this local and regional networks could be integrated so that the collaboration would work. Christina, please.
Thank you very much. And it's a very nice link to just the question that you asked Dr. Hui before.
Please.
And also the colleagues from Nexpo, because the example that I would like to talk about is the AI for Social Good project that we've just concluded. And that is on AI and how to support local governments in the region through knowledge that our expert academics across the networks may be able to provide on the implementation of policies and frameworks to support use of AI in government services. So we work together. So we bring the network of international or of regional academics together, but we also partner with the ESCAP. It's another international network, clearly. And we brought business to, we got funding from google.org, which was fantastic. But then we really wanted to hone into going very national or local even. So there we partner with other networks, and that's the local partner was Nexpo in Thailand. And I never thought of Nexpo as an intermediary, but it's correct. So it allowed us to really work with the colleagues, and some of the colleagues are here that we work together, which is really great, to get academics that we identified who could address some of the needs that we first we worked with those intermediary government partners, with Nexpo in Thailand as well as A2I Bangladesh, to identify the needs that these partners have on AI usage, very specific areas. What is the problem? Where they would like to go? We spent a lot of time on this, really understanding what is the question and what is where do we want to go. And then we brought one academic lead in from our network who understood very well what we are trying to achieve. And she then helped also formulate some of the questions that we would be setting academics to bring their knowledge in as neutral partners, and do some investigation over a little longer than a year, so that we scaled down, as you understand as an academic, that's not long, but we said this is what we have. We formulated the research questions or the needs, and one, it was about AI implementation on poverty alleviation in Thailand, but as well as health and well-being, and so two completely different areas. And then we did a call out to our network and said, who was interested? Academics, this is what we have. Tell us why you're interested. Tell us what you bring to the table. Why can you address this? And so we then selected with the partners again together from Thailand and from Bangladesh for their needs, the teams. So it was really putting the legwork in. Colleagues from ESCAP were fantastic to helping identify who are the right partners within the countries, within the economies, and it was really identifying what is the need, where are the sticking points, and setting some of the parameters from the beginning. And also their trust was important again, and also being open-minded to understand where are maybe some of the sticking points that we may have to address. Also being a setting, managing expectations, I think, on all sides, as well as our own, of what we could achieve. So we wouldn't, within, let's say, 18 months, have a finished policy. It's not about policy development per se, but providing the additional information to the policymakers that they need to develop the frameworks and the policies, and understanding maybe what may or may not work. And some of the projects that we thought it was about AI, it was then actually more about understanding the people on the ground, what their needs are, what is it really, and also the needs of maybe some of the government agencies that were working on delivering these services to the public. So, and that's what the academics that went in, they thought they come in for one problem, and some of them actually said afterwards it was so interesting to work very closely with government colleagues because we matched them up. And the project that came out of this, or the insights, were very different to what the expectations were at the beginning. But I hope
it's interesting. Yeah, because on the one hand, you said, you know, we do need to set some parameters, which means we do need to set some expectation, but at the same time, as you engage the networks, you kind of have to manage the expectation on the ground as well. So that seems to be sort of like, it's not ad hoc, but I guess you have to be flexible enough to adjust along the way. It's not incrementalism, but it seems like flexibility is part of the engagement model that you're saying. Am I correct, or?
Yeah, I think you're completely correct. And it's I guess also readjusting, a constant readjustment, maybe like I don't know, do mechanical engineers still exist? So you have to readjust some of the engine system. So which clearly
it's you know,
not
like
engines, but
as I hear you, I was thinking of the term, like, you know, it's fashionable, I guess, agile, right? The agile management. I don't know if that's applicable to what you're saying, but thank you. So let us hear from Roisin. You know, GPAP is exactly the same. The question that I have to you is exactly the same. You know, you're operating both at the global level, but you have, you know, you mentioned earlier the national and local networks of practitioners and academics, scientists, and all that. Can you give us some, you know, examples, ideas of how the global and regional domestic network have successfully complemented and strengthened one another?
Yeah, absolutely, happy to. I think for us, you know, the global convening is strengthened so much by the local proof points and then the local action, and being able to kind of show that progress over a number of years. And of course, at the World Economic Forum, the annual meeting in Davos is one of the key moments in our calendar to be able to bring together leaders from around the world. And this year, particularly as we're in the final year of negotiation for a global plastic treaty, plastic was high on the agenda. So it gave us an opportunity to create a number of different touch points. So we had a public panel, which included academics, businesses from across the value chain, governments from Africa and from Latin America, and the executive director of UNEP, Inger Anderson, all discussing the need from their different perspectives and what a global treaty could bring. And then I think there was 2 additional pieces which were able to complement that. We had a smaller multilateral session. We're very grateful that the government of Thailand were also able to join us in that. We're able to speak about what could be needed at a national level to actually turn this treaty into something that's implementable, and then had a private sector session as well. So all of those conversations, even though we're talking about a big global topic like a plastic treaty, it needs to be implemented on the ground, and being able to create spaces to connect the dots between those 2 things, I think, is very important. And I think the other piece as well is we feel very passionate at GPAP about creating space to amplify the leadership that we see at a national level through our partners in Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Philippines. There's great examples from the region, and being able to showcase them to other countries, other regions is really important. And I think these kind of spaces for South-South collaboration are also essential as well. The other thing I think which is really useful is thinking about from the beginning, what are the replicable and scalable tools that you can build? And picking up on the point from Christina before, we've developed a number of tools around baseline analysis, around gender and inclusion, but also now continually learning and being agile in how we continue to improve them. Once the tool is there, that's just a starting point. But every time we run it in a different country, we try to make it better and better. So that provides us with a really strong evidence-based. And for things like in gender and inclusion, I think it's that great ability of a network to bring in for plastic pollution, gender and inclusion don't maybe always come together, but how can we bring in the expertise from different networks to ensure that we are connecting the dots? And really it makes the work that we do around plastic pollution so much stronger to be able to have experts to bring a gender and inclusion lens to it. And that's something now that we replicate in every different country that we go to, and we're able to see learnings from different countries and then dive a bit deeper as well on what's needed at a local level. And I think networks really provide the opportunity to connect the dots between those pieces. And then I think the final point is, for us, we operate at a global and a national level, and I think we've really clear objectives from our work in terms of what we want to achieve within that. And that's where we're really grateful for regional networks, which isn't part of our mandate, to be able to connect and bring in our local national examples, and actually then to learn from the regional networks as well. So I think we're always really committed and supporting to engage at regional levels, because there's so much for us to learn. And hopefully to be able to bring some examples and some expertise to the table as well. But I think being able to connect those is essential.
Great. So when because well, it's multi sort of level and multi platforms, I assume there'll be some, well, let's I don't know if I can call them conflicts, but as sort of different values or different frameworks that people have across different networks, I guess, different levels of networks, different geographical coverage of each network. How do you resolve those differences, as you push sort of advocates for a certain agenda?
I think it's really helpful to be clear on your own objectives and what it is as a platform or as a project that you can do and what you can't do, and then kind of engaging with others to say you have much more expertise in whether it's financing or something like that, and being able to bring in and to be clear and kind of humble in some ways in terms of what you can achieve and what you can't achieve. I think the thing that's really useful is bringing examples of impact and showing what you're doing at a global level. If you're thinking about a plastic treaty, it helps to say, we have done this in Thailand. We know that this works. This is what we've learned. There's room for improvement. But it actually helps to move things along. So I think being able to show clear examples really helps to have different conversations both at global and national levels.
Thank you, because you keep stressing it, and I agree completely that sort of examples, and Christina mentioned that as well, the examples as well as the evidence. Because once people see that the impact is really there, then they would go back and figure out what they can do. So thank you very much. These are so exciting though, because I keep asking questions, but unfortunately we have to go to the next round of question about intermediaries and how intermediaries would help in strengthening networks. So I would like to ask Dr. Saibandit, who represents the private sector from Laos. And Dr. Howe earlier mentioned that governments have to shift their paradigm, especially in science, technology, and innovation, from being just policymaker and assume that everybody will follow. From your perspective, what actions do you think governments should take to support an intermediary organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce or other private sector networks such as Startups Association? Dr. Saibandit, anything that you think the government should do? It could be in the context of Laos or other countries that you're familiar with. Please.
Yes, thank you again, Dr. Apiwat. I think it's very, very good question. As we know, the government is playing a very vital and very important role for any endorsement, any policies, and so on. So, of course, the government has to be the lead of all of these things. So, I think the intermediaries, such as others, association or group or business, I think first of all, we should have our own objective and what we want from the government. First of all, if we know what we want, then we submit to the government for the understanding and endorsement. Of course, out of it, we have to sit down and see how we can move. We know that government are very strict. They have their own procedures. They have their own setup and so on. It takes time to do this, to do that. But and on the other hand, they can set up a task force or a special what you call it, working group, so that they can work directly with those groups that try to be established. Of course, the government has to mobilize the resource of it, and they have to have the resource to be mobilized as well. If they don't have the resource, they should ask also from international organizations who can support, such as UN ESCAP, whatever UN organization that has the knowledge and has the capacity to help the government to approve all these requests as well. I think the government has to work with the private sector very closely, and also putting the public-private partnership in front of things. So this PPP will actually have both sides, the business side and the government as well, and also the group of business that want to move forward from the initiative in that part. I think also to better understand that, not only on this level, but we should also see at the beginners level, at maybe at the school, so that people understand what is the strategy, or the future that we want to achieve. So putting not only academia is already the universities level. So how about at the school, high school level, already starting up with the STEM organization, science, technology, mathematics, all these things are already in there, and try to make the kids also understand that after that they have to join some kind of better developed group who now has a business, or try to run the business in these sectors already, because many startups, as you know, they don't have the business license. So to be organized, to be taxpayer and so on, you need to be registered. But many of not registered, so it has to be in this part as well. So whatever, we have to collaborate closely. Yes.
Yeah. So that on that part of a collaboration. So I understand the partnership parts as well as the collaboration part. Let me ask you some almost probably too specific. Do you think intermediaries such as the Chamber of Commerce, which is the private sector, do intermediaries need like financial support from the government? Or you think the private sector has money already, the private sector doesn't really need direct financial support from the government?
Of course, as I mentioned, I think of course the government has mobilized their own resource, but on the other hand, the private sector has their own resource, and they have something already, but maybe not strong enough that they need the support from the government. So that's why they have to have more policies in support of the development of the sectors.
I see. So yep.
Yeah, yes, the private sector have to have something before approaching. If you have nothing, of course, because it's an ownership. It's very important to take ownership of the proposal and so on.
I see. Thank you very much. The part that you mentioned, that the private sector, the intermediaries themselves also have to know what they want, right? Unless they know what they want, it would be difficult for the government to support. Now, the question would be, what kind of capacity building can the government provide to the intermediaries so that they will realize what they want? I mean, it's sort of chicken and egg thing, I think. But you raised some really interesting question for us to consider. Now, let me ask Dr. Nirada from Nexpo. You have been involved with the Thailand innovation clubs and startup associations and other networks of entrepreneurs. I have a specific question, and Mr. Simon did mention the young people, the young startups. For the Thai government, what do you think the government should or could do to support startup associations or the innovation clubs? Any specific tools or measures you think the government should or could do?
Okay. Actually, Nexpo is a policy unit, and we have the goal to achieve that I said before. The innovation economic goal that we want to achieve. So therefore, the innovation ecosystem development could be the focus and prioritized for my job. Currently, we have the support some program to the university to build the entrepreneur and support some program for, just like I said before about the university holding company, is called University Holding Company Directorship Program. So we support the mentorship program to them with experienced mentor who provide the guidance and support to navigate the startup ecosystem. Furthermore, the government agency like Nexpo, we have support the pilot of the policy, the experimenting with the mentorship program that is a demand and is like a success factor for the startup, as well as we extract the lesson to improve it into an ongoing program for the nation. So the startup association and other network for the work for the entrepreneurs can join the program. Will launch in this year, and the information will be provided in the Nexpo website. So this is the role of the Nexpo that can support and can take the action for support the Thai Startup Association and the network. Moreover, in the aspect of the facilitating cross-border collaboration and knowledge exchange, we try to enable the SME and young entrepreneur to access the international market. We have the program called the e-commerce innovation park or platform. Yes, it's like to help them to access the international market and potential customer that abroad. We are in the process of discussing with the key stakeholders like Science Park and some universities who have cutting-edge technology and innovative process to do innovative like a practice to do that. This can help and can collaboration with the startup association as well, and some entrepreneurs, some SME with the connection and networking opportunity and partnerships. So I think the policy unit as the Nexpo and the government like university can facilitate the support the association for young entrepreneur, both in direct and indirect mechanism. Yes, in indirect support such as the fund for the collaboration project to promote the technology transfer, market research, and some foster collaboration between the academia and industry can fund that. And in direct support, for example, we can offer the incentives and support to attract the foreign direct investment in the innovation sector or some sector. Also, we can create the supportive regulatory environment, streamline the regulation, and to promote the intellectual property protection and utilization as well.
It seems to me that Nexpo is doing everything, right? Not just creating the environment to build the ecosystem, but I feel like that the organization Nexpo itself as a government agency does recognize the important roles of intermediaries and in building the ecosystem. So that's why you provide both the direct and indirect support to startup associations, not just to startups themselves, but through the intermediaries such as startup associations. You use them or work with them to build the innovation ecosystem. So thank you very much for that perspective. We have still a few minutes. Unfortunately, it's a lot of insightful comments and answers there. We have some time, a little bit of time for open discussion with participants. If anybody in the room, if you have any questions or comments, please raise your hand, or you can write your questions there. Anybody? I see. Sorry. Do we see any? Well, as we wait for the questions from the participants, I have one quick question to the four remaining speakers, and please answer it, like short, quick question here. As you work with, okay. Instead of my question, Dr. Pranpriya has a question. So Dr. Pranpriya, please.
Okay, well, it's thank you very much, Ajahn Aphiwat. It's not really a question, but it's rather some clarification on the role of Nexpo. As Nirada has already mentioned about how we work with network and both expanding our network and also help facilitating being an intermediary. But I just would like to clarify that we are in policy office. We are not an intermediary. Even though we have intermediary roles in some aspects, it's because being an intermediary is one aspect and one task of crafting policy. So our main responsibility still lies on policy formulation, and that includes many different roles, even outreaching, policy outreach, creating public awareness. Otherwise, if you have policy and no one uses it or no one is aware of it, then it doesn't really get used. So just would like to explain a little bit on that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you very much. And I think I certainly agree with you on that point. If nobody is raising her or his hand, I will ask my question. So the question that I have really is about communication. Like Roisin, Christina, you mentioned communication, and I would like to ask. We know communication is important in building networks, but how do you do it? What's effective communication in networks? It's a simple but probably difficult to answer, but you are very experienced in building the networks and working with the network. So may I start with Christina? How do you communicate so that you can build an effective, inclusive, collaborative network?
Yes, it's $100 question. Even more.
$1 million, I think.
$1 million, yes. I think, funny enough, as bad as COVID was for this region, it has helped a little bit in terms of communicate or the acceptance of communicating, where you don't necessarily have to meet in person, even though that is very, very helpful, I have to say. But it has broadened the scope, where you can say we have to meet in person, but we can also meet virtually, and we can also do a lot in email. So that has made things a little bit easier. But communicating, I think for me, we try to be mindful that, for example, the speed of answering emails and so on, or being on time or not, there can be different perceptions or different cultural norms. So be mindful what one does themselves. So always, and for me, I put myself always in the shoes of the other colleagues.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand from their point of view.
I see.
And then communicate this also to the other colleagues. That makes sense. So they're being an intermediary in that respect, and trying to negotiate in a way without looking to be negotiating.
I see.
And trying not to forget that this is really important. That is for me part of communication.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you. Roshi, please.
Yeah, it's such an important question. I think as part of our work, we really try to take a human-centered approach. So as part of that, it's identifying your audience, who it is that you want to speak with. And then I think the first step is always to start with listening, and communication is two-way. It's not just kind of making sure your message gets out there. So the more time you can listen and really understand who that target audience is, the more meaningful that communication will be. Because it helps you then to adapt your message, adapt your approach. You said cultural norms are so important. As an Irish person, I feel like I've learned, or I get things wrong all of the time. But yeah, really understanding your audience. And I think, yeah, making sure it's a dialogue and it's listening is 50% of what you should be doing as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kunirada, communication to you.
Yes, the communication is the very difficult part of my experience in my job. But because we do the policy, and some policy is related to the regulation and law, and we try hard to explain and make the awareness of the enactment of the law. And this is difficult to communicate with many stakeholders, which has the different aspect. Some win, some lose, on the enactment of law. But when we have the Innovation Club, Thailand Innovation Club, they organize the like a regular meeting to discuss many aspects of the policy policy to support the startup. We discuss the challenge, the needs, the opportunity, and this kind of discussion we will lead to the some policy. It's like an engagement process that very helpful for the communication to the policy communication. And
yeah, thank you. So policy communication is really important. All right, last but not least, Mr. Saibandit, communication for networks.
Yes, Dr. Abhivat, I think as everybody already mentioned, I think I just follow, is it the same everywhere? Communication is the most important thing. And to communicate each other, first of all, I think both sides need to listen to each other, not only one side, because we have experience that you can talk whatever you want, but the one who decides we won't listen to you, you still cannot what you get. So that's the thing. So it must be mutual. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess without listening, you cannot gain any trust from your partners, right? Thank you so much, everybody. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but we've learned so much from all of you, the panelists, as well as the questions. We will try to integrate some of your insights in developing our workbook, and hopefully at the regional forum later this month, we'll be able to present the workbook to all of you. So thank you again.
You have one more question. Somebody has raised hand.
Oh, yes. And then we'll go to Raphael. Please, Sofal, please.
Yes, just good afternoon from Cambodia. And just a quick suggestion only, as this ESCAP now play a very pivotal role in connection between CLTV. So I think ESCAP could play a very key role in communication, as well as convene and incentivizing the members, so that our network in STI policy might work very well in the country and as well as in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Thank you. Raphael.
Yeah, if there's any further questions, I ask the panelists if we can stay for 10 more minutes. So give it a few seconds before closing in. So please raise your hand. I'll talk right now. 3, 2, 1. No. Okay, very good. So thank you very much all. I think it was a very informative webinar. Very excited to reach the end of the series. So thank you all the panelists for joining in and share the insights. So what will happen next is this webinar, of course, will also being recorded, and we'll be preparing the briefing notes to finalize the content. And we'll share with you little workshop report or advisory support report, which consolidates the findings of these 3 webinars plus the workshop that we organized in December. So you're going to have full access of this. And final point, and I'll put it here in the chat, is to mention that we're going to organize a regional forum on policies to promote private sector engagement in science, technology, and innovation. It's going to be here in Bangkok at the United Nations Convention Center. So if you have interest to join, if you'll be in Bangkok, to be available, you please fill in this expression of interest form. I put it in the chat already. The spaces are limited, but if you are interested and you're available, just try to join. We'll try to accommodate a few more colleagues in the region. And finally, of course, there's a feedback form here for you to complete by the end of this webinar. So please indicate how was the experience and how you learned. And with that, thank you very much. It was a very fruitful conversation. Very excited to have organized these 3 webinars. I think we engaged in quite new conversations, and we're able to bring a very diverse group of panelists throughout. And I think we managed to advance a lot. And finally, this all will also be useful to preparing this workbook as well on private sector engagement in policies promote private sector engagement in science, technology, and innovation, which is workbook will also be launched during the regional forum. So we have access to that, and we'll publish around. So with that, any other questions, please feel free to contact me. You all have my email. And thank you very much for joining. Have a great rest of the day, and see you later. See you in the forum, hopefully. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you,
so much.
everyone. Take care. สวัสดีครับ
Thank
Take care.
you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.